Hey there, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Today's video, we are doing a top player at each position for the NFL draft, and we're going to be going through who our favorite guy is at said position. And before we kind of get into that, I would encourage you to subscribe to our channel if you are new, and also please leave a like on this video because it is really important to us to see that we are doing a good job on the content that we are making. And also on Thursday for the NFL draft, we will be doing a live stream. So be sure to stop by and say hi for that stream. And we're going to get right into it.
Jumping forward now here, Austin, we are obviously going to be starting at the quarterback position. And we both have the same number one guy in this year's class at this position. That is Trevor Lawrence. Many look at him as the top overall player in this year's class as well. He was absolutely phenomenal in his 3 seasons at Clemson, won a national title there. Surprisingly, never walked away with a Heisman Trophy award. Austin, is Trevor Lawrence your number one player in this class overall as well?
Yeah, overall, number one overall prospect, number one quarterback prospect. I think that's pretty popular amongst all people that follow the NFL draft. I think what makes him so special is the ability to throw to all 3 levels. He has good athleticism, even at the size of 6'6", which that is not common to see. Really tall quarterback, obviously has the good frame to play quarterback at the next level. What's really impressive about him is his composure, and something that's not seen in stats is he plays the same whether they're up by 50 or it's a close game. He has that same level of poise and composure all the way throughout a game, not too high, not too low. That's what I really like about him from a leadership perspective. I know he's been kind of under fire the last couple of days because of some of the comments he's said, not having a chip on his shoulder, but I just think he's very mature for his age, and I think people aren't really realizing that. To me, it showed a little more signs of maturity, that he's not worried about what everybody else has been saying about him. He's been focused on his game.
I agree with you there, Austin. Talking about Trevor Lawrence, there's not really a real reason for him to have a chip on his shoulder. He's a blue chip kind of prospect coming into college, was the number one guy for Clemson, won a national title as a freshman. Chip on your shoulders for guys who've been a little bit slept on. There's no reason for him to have that. He's been looked at as the number one guy the entire duration of this draft process, and he will be the first overall pick on Thursday to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now at the running back position, you and I also have agreed that Naji Harris is the number one running back in this class. I like him from his versatility standpoint, what he brings to the running back, Austin. What do you think he will do in the NFL? What makes him such a good running back?
What's really impressive about him is he has power and finesse. That's kind of a rare combination. Obviously, he can run through you, he can run around you. But the thing that he really added to his game this year that was so impressive was the pass game. He was very effective in the pass game, something that we weren't really expecting from a guy like Naji Harris. However, he has improved in that aspect of the game, knowing at the next level, that's what they're going to be looking for if you're going to take a running back in the first round. He offers that catch ability. Obviously, I think Naji Harris is a very special running back. I don't think he's one of those generational ones. I think he's a very productive back at the next level. He's an exciting prospect to watch and look forward to. Obviously, he offers a well-rounded game coming to the NFL.
This time last year, too, we wouldn't have been expecting Naji Harris to have been our lead guy. I know both of us were extremely high on Travis Etienne. A little bit of a disappointing year. I'm sure you still think, as I do myself, that Travis Etienne can be a very quality running back in the NFL. We just have a slight preference for Naji Harris at this point. Moving into wide receiver again, Austin, you and I have the same guy at this position as well. That is Ja'Marr Chase out of LSU. Seems like a lot of people seem to have forgotten how productive he was 2 seasons ago with Joe Burrow, obviously an opt-out this past year. Talk to what Ja'Marr Chase's strengths are, what he's going to bring to the NFL, and also what his floor is.
Yeah, so it's really, if we want to start with the floor, I think he is definitely going to be, as a floor, a number 2 wide receiver in an offense, but I see him being the number 1 wide receiver. He's definitely going to be a top 10 wide receiver within probably 2 years of being in the league. He is that special, that good of a player. Maybe top 15. I mean, maybe top 10 is a little high in that sense, but he is a special playmaker, a guy that can do quite a bit after the catch. He's not super explosive, but I think obviously he ran very well at that 40. He was a lot better than people were expecting. A lot of people liken him to Anquan Bolden. Does a really good job shielding off defenders with his body. He definitely plays the angles well in the air. He has the ability to catch in traffic. He can run away from you. There's a lot to like about him. Really good double moves. He kind of has the entire skill set that you're looking for in a wide receiver. He also has pretty good size on top of it all, so that's always an added bonus.
Yeah, looking at Jamar Chase here, Austin, you and I were talking off camera as Jamar Chase possibly being the safest selection here in the NFL draft, especially just knowing what he's going to give you at that wide receiver position. He's going to be the best wide receiver from this class, almost no doubt, in my opinion. I think that he's going to be a phenomenal target in the NFL, which brings us now to the tight end position. And this is a guy who maybe has the highest ceiling in the entire class. A lot of people would consider. I know you and I both have Kyle Pitts here as the number one tight end. I think this is the most clear and obvious one out of all the positions. And Austin, why is Kyle Pitts the tight end one? What makes him such an elite prospect for the future?
Not only is he tight end one, but he's tight end one by a wide margin. Pat Freiermuth is the consensus number two tight end. I just don't think the prospects are even close. I mean, if you're getting Pat Freiermuth as one of your tight ends from the class, you're feeling kind of sad that it's not Kyle Pitts. He's a special player. He's got a great frame. Obviously, he's really quick too. Got the long speed on top of it. But the most impressive thing about him is his catch radius is absolutely enormous. There's so many ways that he can hurt you, the short game, intermediate game. He works in and out. There's so much to like about him as a prospect, an elite athlete, really good hands. It's hard to find some knocks in his game. Obviously not the best run blocker in the class. I mean, that's not to be expected, though. There's very few tight ends that can truly do both. I think George Kittle is the closest thing that you have to that. But, I mean, he's an elite pass catcher, arguably, and this is arguably the best pass catcher in the class. Him and Jamar Chase go back in a lot of people's opinions. We do like Jamar Chase a little more in that sense, but, I mean, you can line him out wide. You can line him up in the slot. You can line him up from that tight end spot. There's so much that he can do, and he's just a mismatch nightmare.
Yes, he will be a mismatch nightmare in the NFL, lining up all over the field, lining him up outside against cornerbacks. Linebackers are going to have trouble covering him as well. He's going to be a beast, and that's really the fun part of the NFL draft on Thursday. That's why you guys are going to want to be a part of that live stream. We will be reacting to where Kyle Pitts goes, and right now I think it's pretty wide open. Some people think Atlanta at 4 could possibly fall all the way down to 8, maybe 9, depending on how the board falls. Kyle Pitts has a wide variety of landing destinations, and I'm excited to see where he'll be playing football in the NFL. Now into the offensive tackle position. Austin, this one was a very close one for me, and I'm sure you feel similarly as well. Penei Sewell edges out Rashawn Slater for both of us here as the offensive tackle one. Talk about his strengths and what makes him a slightly better prospect than Rashawn Slater.
It's really close. I think the potentially the better pro to start year one would be Rashawn Slater. I think he's more of a refined pass blocker. Right now, the definite better pass blocker for sure. But what makes Penei Sewell so special is his elite athleticism as an offensive lineman can really work out in space. That's what we're kind of seeing now in the NFL. They want offensive linemen to be able to move. Penei Sewell offers that. He's got really good strength. He's phenomenal in the run game. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's not the most refined pass blocker from a technique standpoint right now, but I mean, he could be an elite pass blocker at some point. But right now, he's got the elite run game down. So just drafting that alone, really good out of the gate. But he offers the highest upside. That's why sometimes you don't have to take the best prospect at the college level. You got to kind of be able to project a little bit. That's what makes scouting and drafting so fun is you don't always go off of college production. I think Penei Sewell offers tremendous upside at that tackle position. And worst case, let's just say he doesn't necessarily figure it out at the tackle spot. He's going to be a Pro Bowl guard if some team decides to go that way.
Right. Yeah, I definitely see that as well. One question I have for you now at this point, Austin, is it possible on draft night we could see Rashawn Slater go before Penei Sewell, or will Sewell be the first offensive lineman off the board?
See, if you would have asked me that a couple of months ago, I would have said that you're nuts for even asking that kind of question. But now Rashawn Slater's tape speaks for itself. I think it's really close in that sense. That's why I think it's possible. I think it's really based off of what the team's looking for. If you're looking for more of a safe pick, some people argue Sewell's the safer pick, but if you're looking for a true pass blocker, Rashawn Slater could be that guy for you. But I just think that Sewell is going to be the number one lineman. There is a small possibility that Slater edges him out.
I feel that way as well. Moving on now into the interior offensive line position, we both have Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC, and he's kind of an interesting case because he did spend some time at tackle as well. Austin, do you see him sticking in at guard during his NFL career, or do you think he does spend some time at tackle as well?
I think it all depends on the situation for him personally. If there's a tackle needy team that's willing to take him as a tackle, obviously he's going to play tackle throughout his career. Otherwise, I think they will be drafting him to play guard. However, we know about the NFL is there's injuries that happen. Guys need to be versatile. He offers the perfect versatility of playing guard and tackle. Really good reach block, good in the run game as well. But for Elijah Vera Tucker, that's what's going to kind of separate him from some of these other guards and why he's more of a first round lock is having that ability to play tackle and guard. Not a lot of these guys in the class can do it. Hardly any of them. Let's be completely transparent. That's why Elijah Vera Tucker's probably locked himself in as a top 20 pick.
Right. We see Elijah Vera Tucker here as both of our interior offensive linemen, number one player in this class. You guys probably noticed me and Austin have agreed so far on every top player at the offensive positions. And one thing to watch for on Thursday is if there is no defensive players to go in the top 10, that is a real possibility at this point. There's a guarantee that there's going to be 3 QBs in the top 3. Kyle Pitts, guys like Jamar Chase, the offensive lineman we've been talking about in Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell, Jalen Waddle as well, seem like they're going to be guys that round out the top 10. Very possible we don't see a defensive player go in the top 10 picks at all. Some teams in the teens and 20s are probably hoping for that to find some of the top end defensive talent a little bit later on in the first round. Moving on to the defensive side of the football now, we've got interior defensive linemen, and a report came out today talking about Christian Barmore. There's some concerns that he won't be coached up. Austin, do you have concerns about Christian Barmore at the next level?
The only thing for me that's a concern, obviously I don't get to sit in on these meetings. The one thing that was a little weird is right at the start of the year, I mean, he wasn't the starting defensive tackle for them, which is a little odd to me. Obviously played very well, especially towards the end of the season, really shot up his draft stock. So I don't think there's a lot of concern, but, that's just a little weird to me that he was not even the starter at the very beginning. Sometimes that happens with prospects. They come on in their final year of eligibility and then they do super well. And then at the NFL, it was just more of that fluke year. So that's a possibility. I don't see that entirely likely. I think another concern is, how effective is he going to be after, getting after the quarterback? But obviously, I don't think that affects me enough to not have him as our defensive tackle 1. I think it's pretty clear
I think
of us that he is going to be the D tackle 1.
Yeah, I definitely think this class doesn't really provide a lot of challenge either to Christian Barmore at that D tackle 1 spot. Now moving on to the edge, this one is a little bit more open. We both opted for Jaelen Phillips. Austin, I know you've been all over the place. Jaelen Phillips has kind of settled in for me in recent weeks, but I think that was one of the more open positions in this year's class. I have no idea which edge will be the first one off the board. It really depends on personal preference for teams. Austin, why is Jaelen Phillips your edge number 1?
Yeah, so for me, I was all over the place throughout this entire process. I had settled in on Gregory Russo early on, and then I went to Azeez Ojulari, just seeing how talented of a pass rusher he is. But I think Jaelen Phillips as a whole is a really good scheme fit for a lot of teams. I think he could be 4-3, 3-4, doesn't matter. I trust him in all of these schemes. Really effective against the run. He's also a talented pass rusher. I think he's the most well-rounded of all of these edges in the class. That's why he ended up being my number 1. I think he has some elite pass rushing traits at some point. I think he's also very committed, staying home against the run. Very, very disciplined player. I mean, we were just looking at him as a transfer recently to Miami from UCLA, was the number 2 overall recruit out of UCLA. Now has to make that transfer to Miami and absolutely excelled, even though, Quincy Roche was there alongside him. Gregory Russo was there. Obviously, the Russo opt-out really helped Jaelen Phillips in this situation.
Yes, it did. I'm really glad you did bring up Gregory Russo. There was a report from his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, that he's had multiple teams in the first round tell his agent that if Russo is on the board with their pick, they will be selecting him. Austin, do you buy into that? And do you think there's a chance that Russo is the first edge off the board?
I think that this might be Rosenhaus kind of trying to pump up the draft stock. I think he's just trying to get teams intrigued. I think maybe there wasn't as much interest as initially thought. So I think that could be kind of a plot to get him drafted, making it seem like other teams are interested. Hopefully other teams, kind of move him up the draft board. So I think I don't completely buy that. And, I don't know how likely it is he is edge number one.
Right. You have to take everything during draft season with a grain of salt. We've got smoke screen season going on here as we move to the linebacker. And you guys will notice this is our first disagreement on the top player at the position. Austin, you have Micah Parsons out of Penn State. I have Jeremiah Usukuramoa out of Notre Dame. These two players bring completely different elements to the football field at that same position. Austin, talk about Micah Parsons, and then I'll jump in to Jeremiah Usukuramoa.
Absolutely. Micah Parsons, definitely one of those guys. He was a former defensive end, and now he is a linebacker, has really, really good pass rushing ability from that linebacker spot. I think he's scheme flexible in that sense. I think there's a lot of different things that he can do for you, kind of a chess piece. I think he's very, very similar in a sense to Anthony Barr. Has the ability to rush the passer. Also, I think he is an effective cover guy as well. But Micah Parsons is extremely explosive athlete. He's really fun to watch. I think he does have the highest upside of all of these linebackers. Jeremiah Usukuramoa definitely made a push for me, but when push comes to shove, I did take Micah Parsons.
Right. I'm glad you really mentioned the upside there. I think Micah Parsons' upside is probably a little bit higher than Usukuramoa's as well. But I really trust what Usukuramoa is going to bring to the NFL. I think he's going to be great in coverage. I think he's going to be great in diagnosing the run. I think he's going to be a real field general in the middle of a defense, something that we're looking at. Micah Parsons probably playing a little bit more of that weak side linebacker. You had mentioned Anthony Barr as a comparison. And you're looking at Usukuramoa playing maybe more up the middle as that Mike linebacker. A big difference between these two. I think both of these guys are great prospects, though. And if it is true that no defensive player goes in the top 10, some teams from picks 11 through 20 are going to be getting really lucky with these two players getting added into the middle of their defense, in my opinion.
There's a lot of teams that will be potentially interested in these guys in that teens. I think that at one point, Micah Parsons was thought to be a lock for a top 5 pick, which is absolutely crazy because now he could be in those teen areas. But something I want to bring up about Jeremiah Usukuramoa that, I'm not sure a lot of people know, he came onto campus as a safety, which is kind of interesting just because you wouldn't expect that when watching the tape of him. I think he definitely mirrors receivers better than Micah Parsons does for sure. I think he will be better in coverage. I think in the run game, I trust Micah Parsons more. Definitely, a little bit bigger of a frame, and he's been able to shed blocks better from what I've watched. So just a little tidbit of information for the viewers.
Right. A little bit difference there between their play style. And moving on to the cornerback, Austin, we reconvene here with the same guy, but I think this is another very close position at cornerback. We both have Caleb Farley as cornerback 1. We do have a video up on the channel covering the cornerbacks. Go check that out now if that's something you're interested in. Austin, break down why Caleb Farley's cornerback 1 and is Patrick Surtain a close second for you?
I think it's 1A, 1B kind of thing. It's what do you want in a prospect? I think that Caleb Farley is a phenomenal cover guy, does a really good job getting his head around on the football. I think he definitely has better ball skills than Surtain, but Caleb Farley, really flexible hips. The one thing that he is definitely worse at is the ability to press a receiver. I think Surtain is definitely better at pressing. I also think he's a better tackler. So it's kind of what do you have a preference on as a prospect? I think from an individual talent standpoint, they're very close right now. I think that Caleb Farley does offer the potential, bigger upside slightly, but I love both prospects. And unfortunately for Caleb Farley, I think he could drop due to medical.
Yeah, I was just going to bring this up. This is something that has me really excited here. With my New York Jets picking 23rd, I think grabbing Zach Wilson at 2, and if somehow Caleb Farley does make it to 23, that would be an excellent grab for Robert Saleh's defense. I think he's a perfect fit with those ball skills you were mentioning. I think that would be a dream scenario for the New York Jets. I think a lot of teams from picks about 16 through 25 should have Caleb Farley on their radar and probably around the top of their board. I really like what he brings from a playmaker perspective on that defense. I think he's going to generate a lot of takeaways, and he's really good when the ball's in the air, like you mentioned, with his ball skills. I just think he's going to be a guy that deep in coverage, can make a lot of plays. And I really like what he brings at that position. And now to the final position here at safety, we both have Trayvon Merrick out of TCU. And he's got some interesting strengths to his game, Austin. Walk us through why Trayvon Merrick is the top safety and what seems to be a kind of weaker safety class.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird safety class. I don't think there was anybody that was obviously worthy of even a top 15 selection. We every year we seem to have a safety that's definitely worthy of a top 15 pick. Obviously Isaiah Simmons last year. We've had Derwin James in the past. So there's been some quality safeties this year, not as high a caliber safeties. However, I think Trayvon Merrick definitely sticks out over guys like Javon Holland, Andre Cisco. Reason being, he's definitely a really, really good guy in coverage. I don't think he's elite by any means, but I also think he adds quite a bit of value in the run game, a very sure tackler. But as a whole, he's the best well-rounded safety in this entire class. I'm not as big on some of these other safeties after watching, pretty much all of them that were in this conversation. Trayvon Merrick to me is the number one guy.
I agree with you there, Austin. And looking at this too, the two players in this video that very likely could not even be first round picks would be Naji Harris at that running back spot, just with how that position gets valued. And also Trayvon Merrick. I know we like saying him to Jacksonville at 25. I think that does make a lot of sense. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he does fall outside the top 32 picks in this year's draft. There's going to be a lot of action on Thursday, guys. Make sure you come into the live stream. We want to have you there. Have a great collaborative experience with you on the channel while we get to see the picks unfold. We'll also be doing a live mock draft right before the NFL draft, our final one here on the channel. Thanks again, guys, for all the support. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell, and we'll catch you in the very next video.